Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. So good to see you. I hope you're doing okay today and that you're having a good weekend. Let's go ahead and jump in. It looks like everything is okay. So Instagram is not yelling at me like it usually does, so it's good. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm just going to talk a bit about the opposite of what we talked about yesterday. And that is a growth mindset. Yesterday, I teased apart the fixed mindset that we sometimes refer to as a small mind, or a small mindset. So in tonight's live chat, which I'm going to try my very best to wrap up at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's 6:31, guys. I'm going to try my very best to kind of keep us on this schedule. I want to give you some insights into what growth mindset actually is, what it looks like, how to use it to your benefit, and how to kind of get out of or escape from a family member, a relationship partner, a friend, even a job that reduces intentionally or unintentionally your motivation, your awareness of how strong you could be or can be or are. It really is an exploration of how do I push out all the negative people, family, coworkers, boss, bad relationships. How do I, parents who are unstable, how do I push all of that out of my way in order to step into a new mindset? Because when you've been around a lot of people, and especially highly influential people like family or a spouse that you've chosen to be a part of, when you're around those small-minded, fixed-minded individuals for so long, as we stated yesterday, there's a negative energy that comes from that. And that negative energy is very spiritual. I think it's spiritual. I also think it is existential. It has a way of kind of attacking your ability to stand, because the longer you are in the environment of an individual who is targeting your strength, targeting your mind, targeting your level of motivation, targeting your values and your morals and your qualities and characters, or characteristics, I should say, whether they realize they're doing that to you or not, when they attack you, it makes it hard for you to see outside of that small fixed mindset. And then you can become, if you haven't already, a victim of their fixed and small mindset. And that is a tragedy. It's a tragedy, because when you have, let's say, for example, you have a mother who's a narcissist, a father who is very cold and callous and has gone on about his life. He has nothing to do with you. Let's say your mom is very narcissistic. It's going to be hard for you to feel confident, motivated, sturdy enough, loved enough, balanced enough to stand in your own life and make decisions and go after those things that you want, and to be confident in who you are, because this narcissistic parent is so controlling and minimizing, and all the things that this narcissistic parent says to you is harmful and dominating, and it's superior and it's belittling. And how long can the mind deal with that before it completely succumbs to that pressure? And a lot of people don't realize that it's almost like a ticking time bomb. How long can the brain withstand being underneath this fixed small mindset before it says, you know what, I completely give up. I can't do it. A growth mindset is really the question of, how do I restart? How do I rebirth my passion, my drive, my motivation, my strength, my courageousness? How do I rebirth that? How do I reparent myself? How do I encourage myself to move forward outside of this small-minded, fixed mindset that I've been raised under, that I've been existing around, And so that's really what this is. Now, let me explain some terms for you guys, just to kind of give you some language. There's something known as intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is basically motivation from within. My mom and my grandmother, my late grandma, I miss her so much, but my late grandma, she was a model for me over time, because she had a lot of intrinsic motivation. And my mom and my grandma both say, my grandma has said to me, and my mom says, that I have a ton of intrinsic motivation. Sometimes I'm jumping off of YouTube, and then I'm like putting on my ball cap, putting on my garden boots, and I've got my shovel in one hand and something else in another hand, and my other hand. And my mom's like, "What are you doing? You just got off YouTube. It was an hour-long conversation. Aren't you tired?" And I will say, "I'm tired, but I know I need to pull up those weeds, and I really don't like that the driveway looks like I need to suds it down. I really do need to go ahead and clean the shed before it gets too cold." And my mom's like, "Oh my God, what is wrong with you?" And so intrinsic motivation says that despite all else, right, despite everything that's happened to me, despite where I am in my life, despite my level of fatigue and loss of motivation, I have this internal drive that says, I want to get to there. And to there, over there, requires work and motivation and involvement and passion, right? And so intrinsic motivation is that motivation from within. You have this drive and this passion. But what kills intrinsic motivation? Sometimes it's growing up in a dysfunctional, toxic household. Sometimes it's getting into abusive relationship after abusive relationship. Sometimes it's experiencing years of complex PTSD or trauma, right? Intrinsic motivation can also be killed, if you will, for lack of a clinical term, by a family member, a friend, a spouse who's very fixed mindset, very small minded, in the sense that he or she or whoever this person is in your life, they can't see outside of the box. They kind of want to minimize you to that box. Get comfortable being in this box because I don't want you to climb out of it, And so intrinsic motivation says, I may be in this small box, but I'm coming out. Reminds me of the song, "I'm Coming Out, I Want the World to Know." I don't know where that came from, but I just could hear those lyrics. But that's basically what intrinsic motivation is. I'm coming out of this box. I can't do it. I cannot stay here, Growth mindset is a form of what we call intellectual meta levels of thinking. I'm going to go back over that. Growth mindset, it's a form of intellectual meta levels of thinking. It's really meta-cognition, thinking about thinking, right? Monitoring your own mind. And growth mindset says, I know what I think, feel, desire, want, and is capable of. And so now I'm going to go within and I'm going to process as much as I can what my thinking is. What's my thinking about my thinking? That's intellectual meta levels of thinking. What's my thinking? What's my thought patterns, right? It's monitoring your own mind. That's why mindfulness is so important. And you can do it in a variety of ways. My mindfulness, just to give you an example, is, being underneath a really good book in silence and really getting in tune with it. It's, believe it or not, guys, reading my Bible and really getting to my Bible and really getting into the history and the spirituality inside of it, right? Really fine tuning and getting involved in my faith, really getting centered and connected to that thing that helps me monitor my own mind. And so that metacognition is so important for growth mindset. People who have a fixed limited, small mindset often do not have the ability to think about their own mind. They also don't have the ability to monitor their own mind. So guess what, guys? They have little to no self-awareness. And I think I made that clear yesterday, but they don't have the ability to experience metacognition, thinking about their own mind, monitoring their own mind. So people with a growth mindset can't really be friends with, be in a relationship with, or be connected to somebody with a fixed and small mindset. Why? Because they lack personal insight. And perhaps you are the individual who actually has, a lot of insight about you, right? And so there's an imbalance there between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Let me also mention something known as extrinsic motivation. Let me say this right. Extrinsic motivation is motivation that comes from the outside. Credit, attention, praise, money, good jobs, a contract, things like that. You can actually internalize extrinsic motivation, and it can really boost you on the inside. I think that I have internalized, even in building this channel over time. Building a channel is so difficult, okay? And it takes a lot of hard work that isn't seen on this camera. And so what I've done, I think, over the years, in falling, making mistakes, building the channel, rebuilding it, taking time out with it, coming up with subjects, connecting with you guys, and creating an audience, and learning from you. You teach me, right? Throughout that whole process, I think I have internalized that motivation. And so it's become my intrinsic motivation just to hear you, to connect with you, right? So extrinsic motivation can actually be internalized. And so you may have somebody in your life who is a positive influence on you, somebody that you look up to, maybe somebody that you respect, right? And you can internalize that. You can even take coming onto this YouTube channel, and you can internalize all the different things we say to each other, right? What I say to you and what you say to each other and what you say to me, right? We can take all of that extrinsic motivation, and you can actually internalize that and walk away feeling very empowered. It sounds exactly like that's what happens at the end of these live chats, for sure. So that is known as extrinsic motivation. Now, let me give you a clear understanding of growth mindset, and then I'm going to go to the chat box. Growth mindset is basically this. It's the belief that intelligence, characters, abilities, qualities can all be nurtured. And it can be nurtured through learning, dedication, effort, unconditional love. It can be nurtured by a variety of things. And you can improve, right? It's the motivation that will carry you. My grandmother, my late grandma, she used to say all the time, and she actually had like she worked at a hotel, and she actually had like a badge, and it said, WIT, whatever it takes. And then it had a message underneath. And it was what she would say all the time, which is dedication will carry you. Determination will carry you. And she used to say that all the time. And growing up as a little girl, I would be like, what does that actually mean? Now I know, as a full grown blown adult. Now I know what that means. Oh, dedication will carry you, won't it? Intrinsic motivation will carry you, because it's that thing that is there and it's burning like a fire and it pushes you ahead, right? And so that's growth mindset. It's the belief that my qualities and my abilities and my intellect and my cognition and my ability to persevere can be nurtured. I can improve. My life isn't over. I can improve. A fixed and small mindset doesn't understand that. So in tonight's live chat, before I go to the chat box, because I totally see you guys chatting it up. Oh God, I got a little bit distracted. I need to stop looking over there. I'm like somebody with ADHD, a squirrel. But what I want to do for you in this live chat, again, I'm going to try to make this an hour or a little less than an hour. I want to give you guys 3 important questions 3 important questions that I often have my clients ask themselves, because I think it's a really big piece of the puzzle of moving forward in life, especially if you've had trauma. I want to give you a little bit of research on intrinsic motivation and growth mindset, and then I want to give you some research-based theories on how to move up and move on in your world. And you may have already done that. So you may be validated tonight. And if that's all it is, fantastic. But I do want to give you guys something to go on. So, okay, let me go to the chat box and see what you guys are saying. Dorisa Ryan, hello. So glad to have you. I do not remember seeing you. So welcome to the live chat. And so glad that you're excited about this topic. I really hope this is empowering. Tammy Nicely, hello and welcome back. So glad to see you. Says, I love late nights in the UK. Ah, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for that. Yes. I hope this topic will be empowering for sure. Tammy Nicely says, thank you, Tamara. You are a godsend. So sweet. She says, you looked amazing last night on my big screen, just for the record. Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. Thank you. So love that. When people say they're on the big screen, I'm like, oh my God, how do I look on the big screen? I don't want to, no, I'm kidding. So thank you for that, Tammy Nicely. That's so kind of you. Laura Fit, welcome. So glad you're looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Robert Redmond's Clip Chan, I haven't seen you in so long. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, what a great topic. Oh, I'm so glad. Good to hear this. God is love. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Starburst, Fairy Girl, Cam, and Ray Adams. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. James McDonald, so glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, another late night from the great Dr. Tamara Hill. You are definitely due a well-deserved rest, lady. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you, my Lord. Indigo Sass, hello. That's an awesome name. Glad to see you. Deborah Penna and Sun and Sunflowers. Glad to see you guys back in tonight's live chat. It's been cold lately. Blessings to you. Sending you love back. Good to see you. Yes, so glad that you can catch a live anytime you're able to. Felicia Lewis. Oh God, I'm messing it up. Juby Joe and Ellie Wynn. Hello and welcome. Looking for comments, guys, before we go back to the content. James McDonald says the true growth mindset comes through a lot of pain. I do believe that 100%. I also believe that we can say a growth mindset is basically kind of like post-traumatic growth. You guys probably have heard of that as well. It's like after the rain, there's sunshine, right? After the storm, there's a brighter day kind of mentality, right? And some people may feel like, oh, that's too positive. I don't believe in all that. But there really is some truth to that because, and there's actually some neurological truth to that, because once the brain has gone through such rejection, such pain, such toxicity and dysfunction, the brain gets to a point where it shuts down. But for some people, it actually kicks in overdrive and resilience kicks in. And that's that intrinsic motivation to a certain extent. Resilience for children is astounding because kids can go through a ton of challenges, and the synapses in their brain, which are basically axons or neuronal connections in the brain that creates all the electricity, that has a lot to do with neurotransmitters. I'm not going to get too involved in that. I love neuroscience, so I don't want to go too far. I'll keep talking. But kids who are resilient, it's almost like their electrical system just kicks in overdrive and they become really resilient. And so that is post-traumatic growth or growth mindset as well. Deborah Penna says, how do you deal with a husband that doesn't even respect and acknowledge the feelings and doesn't care? Well, that's a tough one, because for me, I always feel like you have to figure out, and I always say this to my clients as well. You have to figure out first what kind of a husband you're dealing with. Am I dealing with somebody who's a narcissistic personality? If so, that is why he's so cold, callous, and far removed. Am I dealing with somebody who grew up in a household that never acknowledged emotions, that never acknowledged thoughts or processing of anything, right? He's just kind of like this person who operates, that's all, but he never thinks about thinking, never thinks about his heart. Or am I dealing with an individual that I don't want to say this, but mistakenly married because I thought he was somebody that he really isn't, you know? So you got to figure out who you're dealing with first. Then you can figure out how do you deal with a husband that doesn't acknowledge things, right? You got to figure out who you're dealing with first. Fifi LaFleur, hello and welcome. Always glad to see you in a live chat. Ellie Wynn says, need this. Yes. Star, hello and welcome. I haven't seen you in a little while. Star says, thank you for these wonderful topics. So glad to catch this live. You're welcome. And thank you so much for saying that. It really helps me continue to produce you good content, you know? Fairy Girl, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Yeah, I'm going to leave that up there for just a second for people to see. Indigo Sass is so cute. She says, so much needed because I attend therapy on Thursdays. Oh, that's so cute. I love that. I love that. Okay, just looking for comments. Zara, I hope I'm saying that correctly. So glad to see you back tonight. You were looking forward to this conversation. I know you were. Zara says, good evening, Tamara and everyone. I appreciate that you talk about the spiritual perspective. I can only think about the scripture, evil communication corrupts good manners and transference of spirit. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I very much agree with that. And speaking of the spiritual perspective, I truly believe that we are all spiritual beings. I don't believe that we are just flesh and blood. There's a spiritual component to us, right? Whether we acknowledge it or not, I think we have a soul, we have a spirit, and we need to nurture that. So growth mindset kind of points to that. It says that there's a different component to your existence, and you need to target that, you know? Okay, I'm just looking for other comments before I go back to the content. Laura Fitz says, if you don't have the awareness, you will gradually surrender to the limited energy. Awareness is a blessing. Awareness is a blessing. That is excellently said. I do believe that how am I going to say this? Personal insight and self-awareness kind of builds wisdom, right? Because if you think of, you know, if anybody has read the history of Jesus, if anybody has read the history of Gandhi, is it Gandhi? Yeah, Gandhi. Yeah. Then you can, and there's other philosophers that we can also call on, Buddha, the list goes on, that we can go back to understanding or learning about. If you look at these different leaders, right? Wisdom for them came about through self-awareness. And wisdom for them came about through understanding the spiritual side of who they are, you know? So I really do believe that if you have self-awareness in some capacity, it births wisdom. It has to. Otherwise, you know, if it doesn't birth wisdom, then it's a lost cause, because there's no sense in existing if you don't have personal insight or wisdom. I really do believe that that's the driving force for a lot of issues, a lack of knowledge and a lack of personal insight and wisdom. I hope that makes sense. Noon, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. You're welcome, and thank you so much for saying that. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, GB Joe. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. You know, my daily prayer is this, that I can be what you and anybody else needs me to be. That is my daily prayer. Doesn't mean that I'm a people pleaser. It means I just want to be selfless. Does that make sense, guys? That's growth mindset too. We're going to get into that just a little bit. Noon, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much, James McDonald. That's so great. Thank you. It's humbling. Ronald Zion, you're welcome. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you as well. Starburst says intellectual meta levels of thinking equals monitoring your own mind. Yes, it does. It's meta-cognition. Intellectual meta levels of thinking. Meta-cognition. My mom, this may be helpful to you guys, and I don't know if the book is still on the shelves or available, but my mom used to read David Hara, and his book was Beyond the Dream, and he talked about existentialism, metacognition, and phenomenology. It's one of those books where you have to be like, okay, everybody shut up, close the door, close the windows, leave me alone, because I have to focus 100% on this book. Because guess what? The minute your mind wanders, you can get so lost in that book. My mom used to read that and I'd be like, is something wrong with you? Why are you reading that? Because it was so entrenched with phenomenology and metacognition and so many terms that you have to keep a dictionary nearby at all times, you know? So you may want to check that book out, guys. Okay, let me say hello to Yaya. Glad to have you back in tonight's live chat. So glad to see you. Mama Bam Boom, you're my last one before I get back into the content. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Says the sound of silence was a great start for me. Oh man, love that. Gave me a chance to go deep inside. Yes, and visit my soul head on. Strength and grace. Yeah, I love that. So love that. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for saying that. Let me encourage you to consider 3 questions before we get into the research, and then I'm going to give you insight on how to move up and move on as you go along. So 3 questions I often have my clients ask themselves. And sometimes if they're big journalers and they like to journal, I'll have them journal on these questions. One question is, am I where I want to be right now? Am I where I want to be? That's number 1. Am I where I want to be? Sometimes, every now and then, when I have time to think for myself, after a busy week, I will sit down and I will look at this and I'll say, and oftentimes it's in prayer or it's while reading my Bible or journaling, trying to really get into what's going on in my mind and my heart for that day and that moment. I will often ask myself that, am I where I want to be? Am I giving my clients what they need? Am I feeling exhausted and burned out, or am I where I need to be? You know, am I where you guys need me to be, right? You know, am I in a place that's selfless and sacrificial to those who need me? Am I where I want to be? That's a very good question, right? The other thing is, you know, what's realistically holding me back? That's the other question. That's number 2. What is realistically holding me back? Is it that boyfriend over there that I didn't need? Is it that girlfriend over there that I didn't need? You know, is it that television show I'm watching that's starting to penetrate my mind and cause me to re-experience trauma? Is it this feeling of being lost and alone and lonely that's keeping me held back, right? Is it that toxic, dysfunctional, narcissistic mother that calls me every once in a while and judges me, holding me back? What is realistically holding me back? Is it that psychopath father that was never a part of my life and all of a sudden just showed up and wanted to be a dad? Is that holding me back? Right? So these are the things you want to ask yourself. The third thing I have my clients ask themselves is, what can I realistically change? What can I realistically change? I'm not going to say, you know what, I'm going to stop eating all sweets and I'm going to lose 50 pounds by next month. That is so not realistic, right? If you're like me, you have a big sweet tooth, and I'm not going to just stop eating my chocolate streusels just because, right? What realistically can I change? That toxic mother over there who's very jealous of me, my sister, my brother, my cousin. She's just a jealous-hearted mother in my life. This is an example. What realistically can I change about our dynamic? Can I go no contact? Can I stop holiday visitation? Can I reduce our communication to text only? You know, can I reduce our communication to twice a year? You know, what realistically can I change? Oh, I'm in a relationship with a really unstable person who has a fear of abandonment and is bossy and controlling. What can I realistically change about our relationship? Do I need to get out completely? Do I need to go to therapy? Do I need to learn some new skills on how to manage a person like this? What realistically can I change? That is question number 3. And these 3 questions are actually backed by research. And it's predominantly research on mindfulness and meditation. I'm going to make sure I put it in the description box for you, the research on these 3 questions. But these are helpful. Am I where I want to be? What's realistically holding me back? And what can I realistically change? Now, there is some research that suggests that if you have intrinsic motivation, which is that motivation from within to get away from toxic people in your life, to put up boundaries, to stop that person from gossiping about you, to totally go no contact and disappear from your family, whatever it is, if you have intrinsic motivation, you may learn the best from experience. You may learn the best from toxic relationships, which means you can then turn your behavior around in enough time to escape. And you're more likely to come on to channels like mine and Dr. Ramani, and I can't think of the other coworkers that I have on YouTube. You can come on to our channels and actually digest, not ingest, that's a new word, digest what we're saying and what we're sharing with you. Why? Because you have intrinsic motivation. I wonder if you guys have ever thought of it that way, that the things that you go on YouTube to learn is a product of intrinsic motivation. If you didn't have intrinsic motivation, you wouldn't come onto YouTube at all. You would just kind of feel like, you know what, whatever's happening in my life is happening. I'm not going to engage in any self-learning. So you obviously have intrinsic motivation because you come on here to learn. Some research does suggest that students who have self-motivation and intrinsic motivation often learn the best. Their information is more concrete. They tend to grow from what they learn, and they tend to really learn it, right? Not just memorize, but they actually learn the material, you know? There's often, according to research, increased motivation, higher achievement, academic or personal achievement, and there is often this increase in confidence and courage if you have a growth mindset. Can you believe that? That there is an increase in motivation, higher achievement, academic, personal, occupational, and an increase in confidence and courageousness if you have a growth mindset. And in order to have that growth mindset, we have to do what, guys? Push those people with a fixed mindset to the side or to the back because they're afraid, they're doubtful, they're unmotivated, they are, warped by intergenerational trauma. They are blinded by, they have blinders on of self-doubt and fear and anger and resentment and jealousy and envy. So in order for us to develop, maintain, and nurture a growth mindset, we truly have to push those people with a fixed small mindset to the side. You guys are well aware of that. But I figured that I would kind of validate what you most likely already know there. How do you embrace a growth mindset or a mindset that's stretched when you're in the presence of a family member who has a fixed, limited mindset? The only thing that research suggests is healthy boundaries, going no contact, or building really, really good personal insight so that you can separate their influence from your reality. Because the longer you stay in an environment where somebody has a fixed small mindset, the more their negative energy can penetrate your own heart and mind, and then you lose a piece of your soul. So research suggests that we push them to the side, minimize contact if we have to, and build as much of a growth mindset as we can so that we can block their negative fixed mindset, Now, how do we move up and on with these kind of people? Before I go back to the chat box, let me give you some thoughts, and then I'll take a little bit of a break. Then we'll come back. Then we'll wrap up. So how do I move on and up? Well, research suggests, and I've seen this in clinical practice, so I encourage this as well, that you seek out and create an autonomy supported, I'll put it that way, an autonomy supported environment. So let me go back over that. Research suggests, and I also suggest, and I've also used this with clients who are doing really well today, is you want to seek out and create an autonomy supported environment. What does that actually mean? Well, it's an environment that supports your attempts to be autonomous and independent. An environment where you are encouraged to be a part of the collective group can sometimes be deadening to an independent growth mindset. So you want to find an environment, right, that's outside of your toxic dysfunctional family, that's outside of that toxic dysfunctional relationship, that supports an autonomy supported environment. It's an environment that supports your independence. It's an environment or relationship that supports your ability to be autonomous and smart and motivated, right? So we call that an autonomy supported environment. You also have to find supporters who are self-determined, right? Self-determined and motivated. Getting over there with Uncle Jojo, who says there's no sense in trying because life is too hard to move through, is not the person that you want to be around. You want to be around that individual who's realistic and honest, that yes, life is hard, but you can still make it through with the right tools, with the right insight, with the right spiritual balance. You can get through it. So that's what we call a environment that includes supporters who are self-determined. You might find these kind of individuals sometimes, not always, in a religious environment, in a church environment, in a youth group environment, in a spiritual environment, where people really do hang on to their faith, their knowledge of God, their knowledge of spiritual understanding and strength. That's an example of an environment of self-determination. But if you can find supporters of self-determination and really hang on to them, that is a fantastic way to boost yourself forward. You also want to remember that stability over time and a growth mindset is really dynamic. It's not static. There's no set course for a growth mindset. You're going to go through a variety of twists and turns with that growth mindset. In other words, you may try to stretch your mind, build yourself up, push yourself forward, really fight this battle so that you can move past those years of trauma, move past those abusive people, move past that dysfunctional family. You may do that, and that is fantastic, but you want to keep in mind that it's like a roller coaster. There's twists and turns. It's dynamic. It's not static. It's not a straight line. So you may find yourself struggle at times. You may find yourself exhausted at times. You may find yourself wanting to give up at times. You may also find yourself succumbing to a fixed mindset. But the good part about having a growth mindset and getting rid of or minimizing those fixed mindsets is that you can always bounce back, right? You can always bounce back. Also, too, you want to keep in mind that extrinsic motivation, so money, credits, achievements, rewards, degrees, praise, reinforcement, whatever, financial stability, those are extrinsic motivations. They kind of motivate us from the outside. You can digest that. I said this earlier. You could digest that, and that can motivate you to develop and maintain a growth mindset, I've seen people increase their money within months. They work several different jobs, and next thing you know, they're making $100,000 a year. And that is motivation for them to keep pushing when they want to give up. So extrinsic motivation can be very helpful as well. You also want to be mindful of your self-doubt. Be mindful of your self-doubt. You know, what's going on here? What's causing me to self-doubt? Why am I self-doubting? You know, how do I maintain this growth mindset even though I have these doubts on the inside, you know? So you want to monitor that, really be focused on why you're doubting you, imposter syndrome kind of thing. You know what I mean? You want to be cautious of what we call intellectual self-doubt. The fixed mindset of I can't do anything right. You know, that fixed mindset of I'm stuck. I give up because I can't do anything right. You want to be mindful of what we call intellectual self-doubt. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not keen enough. I'm not wise enough. That's intellectual self-doubt. In order to build a growth mindset, you know, you really want to, you know, get a handle on that intellectual self-doubt. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys everything. I think I am. One last thing before I go to the chat box. And I tell my clients this all the time, that you really want to learn how to separate your self-doubt and other people's opinions from fact. So I'll go over that again. You want to learn to separate your self-doubt and other people's opinions from fact. And that is a growth mindset. It's really saying, you know what? I'm going to separate your opinion of me, your preconceived notions, your gossiping behavior, my own doubts of me. I'm going to separate all of that from the fact. The fact is this, that I've always persevered, that I always stumble, but I get back up again, that I have a loving heart, I'm intelligent, I'm strong, right? Those are the facts. So you want to be able to separate self-doubt and other people's opinion from fact. And that is a growth mindset. That is a growth mindset. What do you guys think of this? It's interesting. I'm going to pause the conversation on the growth mindset here, because in the coming days, I'm going to be talking a little bit more, you know, in our other discussions, I'm going to bring up here and there a little bit more about growth mindset. But I want you guys to keep in mind, and I hope this was helpful, I want you to keep in mind that with a growth mindset, I need to separate other people's opinions and my own self-doubt from the facts of who I am. I also want to ask myself 3 important questions. Am I where I want to be? What is realistically holding me back? And what can I realistically change? For some of you, it may start with the holidays. Maybe you're going to go no contact. Maybe you're going to minimize contact. Maybe you are going to, for once, say, you know what? I'm not going over Uncle Bill's house. I don't want to deal with that anger. I don't want to deal with that disrespect. I don't want to deal with that, you know? So you want to ask yourself those questions. You also want to keep in mind that you may have within you intrinsic motivation. It's motivation from within, and that keeps you going, right? And one last thing I want to bring back up, just to make sure that I kind of underline this point, that you want to create and maintain an autonomy supported environment, an autonomy supported environment. And that is outside of those toxic, dysfunctional individuals that keep you stuck. And it could be within a group of people that you really do trust and love and care about, you know, an autonomy supported environment. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box, engage with you for a little bit, and we're going to wrap up in just a little bit. Okay. Zara, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Zara's kind of really underlining what I'm saying here. 3 important questions. Thank you, Zara. Elizabeth, hello, and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you tonight. Daryl Harris, glad to see you as well. Thank you for that positivity. Michelle Lynn, oh, that's awesome. Welcome to tonight's live chat, by the way. And she says, I need this topic right now. Thank you. You're welcome. Tarika Styles, welcome to tonight's live chat. So glad to see you. Yeah, Kim says, as odd as it sounds, I didn't know I had boundaries with myself. It wasn't until someone crossed them that I knew I had them. I don't know if that makes sense, but now I stand up for myself more. It does. It makes perfect sense, because I think we all fall into the three categories of boundaries. There's rigid boundaries, there's porous boundaries, and there's flexible boundaries. There's also healthy boundaries. So actually it's three different categories. Porous and flexible is one, rigid and healthy. And I think we all can sometimes fall in line with either of those, right? Rigid boundaries is don't cross my boundaries or I'm done. Some things I am rigid on. I don't show it on YouTube probably, but some things I'm like, nope, 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 we're not doing that. I don't like that. Other things I'm like, okay, I'll go along with you. And then healthy boundaries, I exercise those when I say, I'm sorry, I can't schedule you for an 8 p.m. session. You know what I mean? So I think we all fall within those three categories of boundaries. A growth mindset can also say, I know my boundaries. I've identified my boundaries very well, and I know how to flex my boundaries when I need to, Fairy Girl, I'm going to put you up here so people can see your comment. Yeah, Deborah Penna says, yeah, I feel like I was mistakenly married to him. Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I feel like something that gets in the way of a growth mindset is being in a relationship with, or being connected in a relationship of any kind, to a person who is small-minded, who's fixed mindset, who doesn't really care about themselves, much less you. I just think that is the most difficult relationship to be in, right? Because when you're in that dynamic, you're really in it alone, because that other person isn't where you want to be. That other person isn't where you are. And so it just feels like a chain around your ankle. You know what I mean? James McDonald says, yep, we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience here on a mission to grow and evolve our souls. I'm going to star that comment, James McDonald, because I very much agree with that. And I think that was perfectly said. Thank you. T Mac, hello and welcome back to tonight's live chat, says, I feel that the older you get, the harder it is to be resilient because the pressure of life becomes greater. Certain things make less sense and fewer people play by the rules the higher you climb. Oh, man. Well, that might be true to a certain extent. I can't say that I disagree. I can't. No. I very much can see that. And my mom would agree with you. My mom is almost 68. And so she would agree with, I feel that the older you get, the harder it is to be resilient. My mom says the older she gets, the harder it becomes. And she's like, you're going to get here one day. And I'm like, please don't remind me. But no, she says the same thing, T Max. So I very much can see that. I don't disagree. Phoenix, hello, good evening to you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Starburst says, am I where I want to be? Yes. Yes. Thank you, Fairy Girl. Thank you. I do. Eccentric, welcome to tonight's live chat. I don't know if I welcomed you. I apologize for that. Citizen King, I'm going to say hello to you. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I'm not sure what is being said, so I'm not clicking on your comments. I'm sorry about that. So let me read your comment. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Citizen King says, it's so surreal how much I've progressed all the way around since I pulled up the drawbridge to toxic heathens in my life. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. You can progress and you can develop a growth mindset as you begin to kind of withdraw the energy that you give to toxic, dysfunctional people, Starburst, thank you so much for that. Yep. Underlining what I've already said. What realistically can I change? Yeah. I go through daily life thinking that. I wake up in the morning, ever since my concussion 2 years ago, my health has just been like this. And believe it or not, guys, my blood pressure hits 135, it hits 140. And guess what? Last night it hit almost 150. As soon as I hit the in stream button on YouTube, my blood pressure is like, and my neurologist is like, too much stress. And so I ask myself, and this may be helpful to you guys, this is why I'm self-disclosing. I ask myself every day I get up, what realistically can I change? Because I know I've already filled my cup way too high. So what realistically can I change? Well, I can realistically cancel the doctor's appointment that I could go to on Friday. That's off my list. I can realistically take a nap between 2 and 3 p.m. so I can get some more energy. I realistically do not have to drive over to that store today because I could do it on Saturday. So it's like, and this may be helpful to you with a growth mindset, right? In developing a growth mindset, you really do have to look at your platter and say, what realistically do I not need here? What can come off my platter? Because it's becoming this big to me and I don't feel empowered when things are much bigger than me. So that's part of a growth mindset as well. James McDonald says, great questions to ask yourself, Tamara. I am going to ponder on them. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'm continuing to look for comments. Ellie Wynn says, Tamara, did you say chocolate strudel? Yeah, I did, but I don't know. Is there such thing as that? I don't know. In my mind, there's a such thing as a chocolate strudel. I don't know. I say all kind of things on Saturday when I'm tired. By hearing and hearing by. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. By hearing and hearing by says, I realistically can enjoy my cake in moderation. I like your about tab. Thank you so much. Yes, I love that. Moderation, right? Okay. Yeah, Dr. Carter. Thank you, Starburst. Dr. Ramani, Dr. Carter, Dr. Lindsay Gibson. Those are my colleagues. And I've had the opportunity to, as of in March of this year, spend a little bit of time talking to Dr. Lindsay Gibson. She's awesome. She's the author of Adult Children of Emotionally Detached Parents. I had the opportunity to be in a conference with Dr. Ramani. Dr. Carter was not there. I haven't had the opportunity to meet him, but I truly like being in a place where all my colleagues are and I get a chance to kind of sit with them and talk with them and engage with them and learn from them, And at the Psychotherapy Network Conference this past March, I was able to tune in to Dr. Ramani's workshop before I went and did some work with my publisher at the event. And I was standing in the back and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, Dr. Ramani. She teaches me things that I thought I already knew. And I'm like, oh, that connects to that. Oh, thank you. So they are wonderful. I like Dr. Carter, Dr. Ramani, and Dr. Gibson, Lindsay Gibson. So I will try to post some of the resources for you. Dr. Ramani is more of the narcissist expert, if you will. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, she's awesome as well in terms of talking about, really escaping this toxic, dysfunctional dynamic and identifying the emotionally detached and immature parent. Her most recent book is Self-Care for Adult Children of Emotionally Detached Parents. So if you need self-care, go ahead and check that book out for sure. Anna Flack says, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. Okay, just looking for comments before we get ready to wrap up here. Yes, yeah. I hope. Minimally Leah, hello. I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Since I'm excited to tune in to a live broadcast after such a long time. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you. I hope you're doing well as well. I'm looking for comments before we sign off here. Laura Fitz says they will infect if you stay around. You have to minimize your time or run. I very much agree. They're toxic. They're toxic. Sun and Sunflower says, I'm so anxious being around toxic people. I have tried to get along, but it brings my spirit down. Absolutely. If you notice that a person brings your spirit down, run, right? Because they're like an emotional vampire. They suck all the energy out of you, right? And you can't have a growth mindset if all your energy is gone. You know, your internal motivation and energy is what gives life to that growth mindset. And if you have somebody around you that sucks that life out of you, you're going to sink, right? Zara says, how can I hold myself accountable on a daily basis to develop a growth mindset? Set daily goals. That's how you do it. Set daily goals. That's one way that I do it. You know, my daily goal is to see about 10 clients today and still have enough, you know, motivation to do a workout, take a nice bath, and read a book. Boom. Growth mindset. Everything that I'm doing is pushing me upstream, you know? So try to set one goal a day that can push you upstream. Do I need to talk to that toxic neighbor? Nope. I'm going to act like I don't see you. I'm going to Starbucks and I'm going to work. And then I'm going to come back home. Excuse me. I may sit on my back porch and read a book, eat a nice dinner, do some yoga, and go to bed. Something that's pushing you upstream. So I would set a goal that can push you upstream every day. Ellie Wynn says, I'm so isolated. I might as well be on a floating iceberg in the middle of nowhere. Oh, Ellie Wynn. I don't know. As long as that's where you want to be, that's totally okay. But if that's not where you don't want to be, I'm sorry you're going through that. Yeah. Ronald Zion says, amen. Autonomy supported environment won't feel threatened by you. Absolutely. That's absolutely the goal. Yep. Okay, just looking. Eccentric says, my mother's abuse left me with severe gastrointestinal problems and CPTSD. And that's when I lost the will to live and total dissociation and survival mode took over. God, Eccentric, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But here's what I see, and I hope this is what's happening to you. You're still pushing upstream. How? Because you're in tonight's live chat. You come to this channel and you learn and you grow and you interact with people. And maybe you do those things outside of YouTube as well. And so that is one thing that's pushing you upstream. Anything that is pushing you upstream is a growth mindset. Keep that in mind. It's a dynamic process. It's going to change over time, and it's a process. It's not like you arrive, boom, I'm at growth mindset. No, you go through a series of things and changes and mindsets and emotions and problems and traumas. But as long as you're doing something to push yourself upstream, that's the goal, you know? Okay, let's keep going here, guys. I want to make sure I get most of you. Orlando and Troy, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Mama Bam Boom says, never let the words, behaviors, and opinions of others cause you to doubt yourself. You are loved and much more than others' projections. I like that. Thank you so much for that. That's such a mama thing to say. If you're a mom, thank you so much for that. Fairy Girl says, oh goodness, come on YouTube, not tonight. I always hit the wrong button in some fashion. Fairy Girl says, systems, beliefs versus your own true values. Yeah. Sometimes you have to unwind yourself from that systemic belief system, right? That's toxic. Momtude, oceans of blessings, y'all. She says, hello and welcome. Oceans of blessings to you as well. Thank you so much for that. Daryl Harris says, absolutely the best message for all of us going through this holiday season. Yes, I agree. Good. Glad to see that it's very helpful. Thank you for saying that. You're welcome, Zara, and thank you so much. Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you. And I think we all need people like you on the earth, right? You guys are the best on this channel. Okay. Just making sure I didn't miss anybody before I get ready to wrap up. Orlando says, this will be my fourth holiday season from toxic family and friends. Wow. Maybe you can come onto my live chat during the week of Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about going no contact around the holidays and kind of the psychology of that. So I hope you can join us then. Angel Warrior, hello, and you're welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Vlad S, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Says, hey, this is just what I need. Good. How to move up, because apparently I'm having a hard time with ADHD and some other things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I tell some of my clients the best way to move up is to evaluate how engulfed you become in toxic, dysfunctional, negative dynamics. So let's say, for example, you're in a relationship with someone and they are very manipulative. They manipulate your thoughts, manipulate your feelings. They try to take over how you think about things. They text you all these things to kind of fires you up, burns you on the inside. And now you're ready to flip and argue. And, you get kind of warped in that world of chaos with that person. I often tell my clients, if you can rise above that somehow, don't get so engulfed in the toxicity of their dysfunction, their anger, their behavioral problems. If you can somehow rise above that, get outside of that, you can move up. It's only when you get sucked into that toxicity and that back and forth angry texting and angry emailing and arguing that you lose that growth mindset. You can't grow because now you're almost like in quicksand. You're sinking because that person or that situation or that dynamic or that dysfunctional person is kind of pulling you down. So I often tell my clients, to wrap this up, try to escape from, stand outside of, or not get involved in that entrenched arguing. I was going to say argumentation, but there's no word like that. I'm making up words this week, guys. Stay outside of that toxicity, because as long as you can keep moving up. I hope that made sense. Rachel A, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, my parents act as if I'm violating them when I hold my boundaries. I just don't want to take a verbal beat down. Yeah, I totally understand that. Sometimes people get offended by boundaries, especially parents, because parents feel like, I had you, so who are you putting your boundaries up to? You know what I mean? And then, sometimes parents can feel like that's not a boundary. That's just you being oppositional defiant. It's just you wanting to have your own way. It's a dynamic that's for a whole other live chat. Lamb Sauce, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. We're really trying to wrap up here. Lamb Sauce says, I noticed that I accomplished a lot more in my life when I had a person who was actively trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, living in survival mode for too long gave me some health issues. Absolutely. I'm so sorry to hear that, but absolutely. Sometimes we call it vicarious trauma, and sometimes we call it compassion fatigue, and sometimes we also call it fight or flight mode. So let me break those down briefly for you. So I believe back in 2011 or 12, when I worked in a juvenile delinquency residential program, and I also was working on my master's degree, and I also was working on being certified in trauma, and I also was taking about 8 courses a semester. I burned completely out. Why? Because I was burning the candle at both ends. I was learning and growing, going to school, working a very toxic dynamic in a juvenile delinquency center of young boys. I've talked to you guys about this before. They were kids who were titled criminals. And I think what I experienced was compassion fatigue. I became so weary of caring and wishing I could change the system and wishing I could change their lives and being disappointed that they didn't want to grow and change and get better. Compassion fatigue, it can really put you out. Now, fight or flight mode, that's on constant go, can then burn you out as well. And so can vicarious trauma, where you're kind of experiencing the symptoms of PTSD or trauma just by watching somebody else or observing it in somebody else or being around an environment that's traumatic, right? So it could have been all three of those things for you. But it sounds like you just kind of burned out, you know? Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Felicia Lewis says the narrative that was spoken about me was never how I saw myself. It never stopped me from accomplishing things despite opposition from people who should have been supportive. That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Love that. Ooh, does that say love? If it is, I hope I saw that right. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I don't ever remember seeing you, so welcome. Love says, thank you. This is heaven sent. I was just talking about the importance of autonomy and evolving. Thank you so much, Miss Hale. Bless you and everyone on this journey. Thank you so much, and bless you too. That's so nice. I'm very glad that this was helpful. Phoenix says, I'm actually tired of being isolated and I feel like I can't grow or finish healing at my mom's house, but I love you in this channel. You've helped me learn a lot, grow, not feel alone, and felt heard. Thank you so much. You're welcome. That's so humbling. And thank you for sharing that with me. It is hard, right? If you're in the home of a toxic individual to grow, but this is where you have to keep trying and building that growth mindset within you, Phoenix. And the only way that you can do that sometimes is by carving out that small area of life for yourself. You know, it's like, my mom often gives this analogy, and I'm going to say this before we wrap up. My mom always gives this analogy. She says, consider a boxer. Consider a boxer. And she always used to say this to me and my siblings, and I'd be like, oh God, what the heck does that mean? But it makes sense now that I'm an adult. I get it. She says, have you ever considered a boxer? They're tired and they need a rest. Their legs are getting tired. They're kind of going in circles with this other person. They're blocking punches and kicks and whatever else. And she says to me, a boxer, in order to get their second win, you know what they do? Sometimes they lean up against the ropes, she says, and they cover their face. She says, and they do that to kind of give themselves some time to breathe and catch their breath and build some energy. And so my mom, I don't know if it was Mike Tyson. I'm not a boxing fan, so forgive me for those of you who were recently watching boxing. I don't know if it was Mike Tyson, but it was a boxer. I think it might have been Mike Tyson. He would lean up against the ropes and he would block his face and he would let that other person, just, punch his arms, and it was like giving him some time to breathe so he can come back stronger. And then he would come back swinging, And so in a sense, analytically, I'm trying to give you like an analogy, Phoenix. You kind of have to find that space in your world to carve out that resting period so you can come back swinging, It's like allowing that individual to do what they have to do, but carving out that space for yourself so you can bounce back. You know what I mean? I hope that made sense. Phoenix, hopefully you caught that. I hope. All right. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Couples Life, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for that. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome to the channel. Okay, just a couple more people I want to make sure that I didn't miss. Sunshine, the Miracle Therapist. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. The book is by Lindsay Gibson. It is Adult Children of Emotionally Detached Parents. Adult Children of Emotionally Detached Parents. Okay. Thank you so much, Jen Woke. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I hope I said your name correctly. Okay, I'm just going to skim one more time. Okay. Anne of Hearts. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Hope you're doing well. Elle Bundy. Of all names on the planet, why? Why? Unless it's a true name. If it is, I apologize for that. Welcome to tonight's live chat. When I see Elle Bundy, oh my God, you know what I think of. All right, guys, I think I got just about everybody. Let's pause, okay? Love talking to you guys. Sun and Sunflowers, I don't know if I recognized you tonight. I think I did. If not, welcome to the live chat. Always glad to see you. Okay. Thank you so much for being with me in tonight's live chat, guys. I hope this growth mindset discussion was helpful to you. Let me know in the comment section if it is. Thank you so much for being such a supportive and engaging community for each other. You guys do such a wonderful, wonderful job at educating me, educating each other. I just love to go back and see it. So stay tuned. Next week, I'm going to post a video, okay, during the week. Stay tuned. It might be Monday. I don't know. We'll see. It's a video on toxic anger, the psychology of toxic anger. And you may have grown up around somebody like this. Maybe you were raised by somebody who's always angry, but in a way that's toxic and dysfunctional. So stay tuned for that. Okay, guys. Love you so much. I hope you have a good rest of the weekend. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.